Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're taking a look at some battles submitted to the channel by a member of the community, CompWiz1. Now, they made it to Legend Rank this season and decided to have some fun, and they're spicing it up in the Master Premier Cup with their 3 Shadow Hundo Pokemon. Shadow Gyarados, Shadow Metagross, and Shadow Chandelure. Now, Gyarados and Metagross are pretty standard staples in the Master Premier Cup, but this Shadow Chandelure is running the craziest moveset I've ever seen. He's running Hex, Energy Ball, and Shadow Ball, so a Chandelure with 0 Fire-type move. Now, it goes without saying, this is definitely not a team that's recommended for climbing, but these battles should be an absolute blast. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and we get a perfect mirror lead in the first match, Shadow Gyarados into Shadow Gyarados. Opponent's gonna fire off energy first, Twister connects, and that does some pretty massive damage in the Shadow Gyarados mirror. CompWiz is gonna hit back hard with his own Twister, and this is gonna end up being a charge attack priority tie that the opponent is gonna win because they do have the best buddy boost equipped on their Gyarados. Aqua Tail will take the knockout. This could set up a pretty nice farm down for the Shadow Metagross. In comes Metagross, there's the pivot out, opponent sends in Garchomp, but this Garchomp is down quite a bit of energy. Normally, Garchomp, not too worried about taking a Meteor Mash, but this is a Shadow Meteor Mash, so Garchomp will put up the shield. Garchomp is overfarmed quite a bit. Oh, the no-shield calling the Twister bait, getting the shield call right, what a call, and making it to the Meteor Mash. I believe this can only be enough for another Twister. The no-shield comes out once again, Twister fails to take the KO. Is the opponent willing to burn both their Protect Shields here? Meteor Mash is going to be double shielded, and now up 2 shields to 0. In comes this crazy moveset, Shadow Chandelure. Chandelure, these hexes really not doing much, but generating some pretty decent energy gains. Twister will be shielded, instant under tap of the Energy Ball, and this should be enough to secure the knockout onto the Garchomp. Energy Ball is going to land, Garchomp is going to fall. What is that final Pokemon in the back? It's going to be Metagross. Does the opponent get the catch? They do not, and Shadow Chandelure is taking lives. Shadow Ball picks up the one-hit KO. All that's left in the back is that low-health Gyarados. Opponent is going to get fully hexed down, and that is going to be a Game 1 win. Hopping into game number 2, Shadow Gyarados, this time leading into a non-Shadow Shiny Hydreigon. Hydreigon gonna go for a very nice catch onto Sylveon, but luckily Gyarados went for the Aqua Tail bait. Aqua Tail will do some pretty okay chip damage onto the Sylveon. Gyarados is gonna farm up a ton of energy and send in the Chandelure. Unfortunately, Chandelure is down a ton of energy. This is gonna be very, very awkward. Chandelure was trying to catch a Moonblast, was unable to do so, and now Sylveon could just completely run away with this matchup. The switch timers are misaligned as well. Energy Ball will be shielded. Energy Ball does get the debuff, and Sylveon does end up throwing on alignment. I believe the switch timer should now be up for the opponent, so they can pivot in here. They send in Hydreigon, but instant under tap of the Energy Ball is going to prevent Hydreigon from firing off the Brutal Swing. There's the pivot back into the Gyarados. Gyarados going to bait once again. This Hydreigon does have quite a bit of energy. They are unwilling to let it go, so they will put up the shield. If it's Dragon Pulse, I don't believe the Gyarados will be able to hang on here. Just going to be a Brutal Swing that is survivable. The Twister is reached, but Hydreigon is the one who's going to be winning the charge attack priority tie. Brutal Swing will take the knockout. How do you get rid of this Hydreigon? In comes the Metagross, but Metagross is going to take huge damage from Brutal Swing, and Metagross can't even really Shadow Claw down. So Metagross is going to be forced to fire off energy as well, and that is a lot of health lost. There's a pivot out. In comes the Sylveon. Instant Meteor Mash comes out from this Metagross. Metagross going to knock out the Sylveon, but man, the third Pokemon in the back is still yet to be revealed. In comes Hydreigon. Oh, what a catch! Able to catch onto the Chandelure. Maybe there is life. Brutal Swing is going to one-hit KO the Chandelure. Metagross looking for the farm down here. Gets the farm down. It's Togekiss in the back, and this game is going to be a win. Shadow Meteor Mash erases Togekiss from the field. That game looks so over, but oh my goodness, what a recovery. That's going to be a win. Picking up a very bad lead in the next match, leading Shadow Gyarados into Togekiss. Safe switch Metagross is going to be answered with Garchomp. If the Shadow Meteor Mash is no-shielded, then Metagross should be able to make a play for swap. But the shield does come up from the opponent. Garchomp is overfarmed quite a bit. Last time, he did call it. He's calling it again. Oh, back-to-back calls! He calls the Twister. I believe he should be able to survive this Twister as well. What a call there. Shadow Metagross bait calls left and right, and that's putting him at such a nice advantage. Shadow Meteor Mash is going to be no-shielded, and look at that, Metagross winning the 0-1s with 1 HP remaining. Togekiss does get the farm down, but now in comes the Hex Shadow Chandelure. and Chandelure will be able to output some pretty monster damage with the Shadow Ball. Chandelure going to be no shielding. Togekiss double resisted Aura Sphere. That does absolutely nothing, but Chandelure is going to put up the shield now. These Pecks are doing quite a lot of damage. Shadow Chandelure is very, very frail, and Chandelure can now go for the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball, I imagine, probably just takes the knockout here. Shadow Ball lands. Yep, that's going to be a KO. In the back is going to be Metagross, and this game is over. Metagross is forced to shield up as the Shadow Ball would one-shot, but now they're down a shield, and in comes the Shadow Gyarados. Shadow Gyarados just going to spam out Aqua Tail after Aqua Tail after Aqua Tail onto this poor Metagross. Metagross will survive the back-to-back Aqua Tails, but the bad news for the opponent is that they just simply don't have enough energy to win this game. They would need to be able to take the knockout onto the Shadow Gyarados, and Meteor Mash will just simply never KO from here. Aqua Tail is going to connect, putting Metagross deep into the red. Gyarados gets that Dragon Breath down and secures the win. We move to the next match. Shadow Gyarados this time going to be leading into another Togekiss. This poor Gyarados cannot catch a break. In comes Metagross, going to be answered with the Garchomp once again. So far, the Metagross has just been no-shielding Twister after Twister after Twister. Eventually, someone has to throw an Earth Power, right? Well, it's the exact same situation again. Is he going to be no-shielding for a third time? He does. Oh no, there's the Earth Power. I spoke it into existence. Earth Power connects, Metagross gets one shot, and that is absolutely catastrophic. Back in comes the Shadow Gyarados. Unfortunately, the first two bait calls were able to put him so far ahead in this game, but ending up no-shielding an Earth Power is very, very rough. Twister is going to connect. That's going to be taking the knockout, but Chandelure is going to have to put in so much work in the end game. Chandelure hits the field. In the back, it's going to be Goldango. Oh no, and Goldango just has so much fast move pressure here. Shadow Ball from the Shadow Chandelure is going to be shielded. This is a Hex Goldango, so it's honestly not doing a ton of damage, but even still, for Hex not having a lot of fast move pressure, this Chandelure is getting melted. Unfortunately, it looks like the game forced an overtap there, making Chandelure take a Hex that it didn't need to take. Shadow Ball will take the knockout, but now it's definitely getting pecked down by the Togekiss, and there's just not enough energy on this Gyarados to be able to take home the win. Gyarados can put up the shield, but Togekiss will firmly have the victory here. Even an Aura Sphere probably knocks out from this range. Gyarados, unfortunately, does end up throwing on alignment there, but realistically, at this point of the match, it's not going to end up mattering. Aqua Tail will not take the KO. Kiss has all the energy in the world that it could ever ask for. Only even full set the Dazzling Gleam there. A little bit of bad manners from the opponent as they take the win. Shadow Gyarados into Shadow Ursaluna in the next match. Ursaluna is a Pokemon that I tried in yesterday's video, and you'll remember what I said about Ursaluna. I was celebrating the fact that in one game it finally did something. I think Ursaluna, even though it has insanely good stats, its moveset, specifically its fast move tackle, is just so terrible that Ursaluna doesn't really do much of anything in the Master Premier Cup. If it ever got Shadow Claw, it would instantly become the best Pokemon, but without Shadow Claw, man, it's very tough out here to be Ursaluna. These tackles do a lot of damage onto the Shadow Gyarados, but Ursaluna is still always going to end up losing this matchup. Opponent tries for a catch, sending in Waterfall Primarina, and that's going to be instantly answered with the Shadow Metagross. Hydro Cannon should put this Metagross pretty close to the red HP. Metagross, with one more Waterfall, is going to be the red HP, but that's a really nice overfarm. Throwing 4 Shadow Claws in the Meteor Mash. Meteor Mash will take the knockout, and Metagross will get the pending health back. So now Metagross should hopefully be able to make a move into whatever the opponent decides to bring in here. They're going to bring in the Ursaluna, but Ursaluna is definitely getting knocked out by this Meteor Mash, and there's still a ton of loaded energy on the Gyarados in case it's needed. Meteor Mash takes the knockout. In the back is Florges, and in comes Chandelure. Unfortunately, Chandelure is going to be taking super effective damage from Chilling Water, but the good news is it shouldn't one-shot. However, that did way more damage than I was expecting. Oh my goodness. Shadow Chandelure is just the absolute glassiest of cannons. Shadow Ball, even on -1, does monster damage. And the Gyarados having an Aqua Tail means this game is already over. But man, I was unprepared for a Chilling Water to do like 75% of its HP. Back in comes the Gyarados. Aqua Tail is loaded. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We move to the next game. Oh, that's a very awkward lead. Shadow Gyarados into Kingambit. This is one of the matchups where Kingambit absolutely excels. Kingambit will be able to pick up the 2-hit KO here with foul plays. Well, not quite, but very, very close. Whereas the Shadow Aqua Tails are not going to 2-hit KO in return. Shadow Gyarados will fire off Aqua Tail number 1. Kingambit able to tank that pretty comfortably, and Gyarados is forced to put up the shield. Gyarados does have a pacing advantage, but Kingambit does have the superior bulk. So Gyarados would actually have to fire off both Aqua Tails if it wanted to prevent the third foul play from being reached. And that's exactly what's going to happen. Kingambit just too bulky. Gyarados forced to expend all of its energy, and the opponent is going to let Kingambit go. Very happy with the fact that they've generated shield advantage for Goldango. And oh my goodness, this is an Astonish Goldengo as well. The Goldengo could very well sweep through this entire team. Goldengo up a shield is just way too scary here. Meteor Mash will get the shield. Goldengo gonna get the full farm down. Oh, this is an absolute catastrophe. What do you do now? In comes Gyarados, hoping they throw energy, and they do. But these Astonishes are about to do an absolutely unholy amount of damage to Shadow Chandelure. Chandelure hits the field. Look at that damage from one singular Astonish. Chandelure puts up the shield. Goldengo fires off the Shadow Ball, and in comes Metagross. And unfortunately, Metagross is always just going to be able to outpace the Shadow Chandelure. Chandelure baits with the Energy Ball, but it's not going to save the Chandelure. Metagross has the Meteor Mash locked and loaded. Triple Steel Team from the opponent. That is very brave considering Rhyperiors are lurking. But hey, it pays off in a big way in this game, as unfortunately Chandelure with this moveset doesn't have any fire damage. Oh, speak of the devil, and it appears Rhyperior on the lead in the next match. Safe Switch Waterfall Primarina answered with the Shadow Metagross. This is a matchup where the Shadow Metagross would actually do quite a bit worse than the regular, just because it doesn't have the same survivability. However, potentially there could be a win condition here where even if Switch Advantage is lost, if the Shadow Chandelure is able to get up energy, then it could Energy Ball that Rhyperior. Because we haven't really seen Energy Ball pop off yet, but man, Energy Balling a Rhyperior would be absolutely incredible. Metagross able to make the Meteor Mash. Will the opponent double down here and double shield? No, they will not. They're going to be sacrificing it and instead going for farm on the Rhyperior. Rhyperior is going to get a full farm down, and that means they're guaranteed to land a Shadow Rock Wrecker into the Gyarados. That could get quite scary. The aggressive pivot back out into the Gyarados. Oh no, they stay in! They should have pivoted out, but they don't. They let the Aqua Tail be reached, and Aqua Tail does massive damage. In the back is Florges, and the opponent has made a very serious error. I guess they didn't realize how much energy Gyarados had stored. They thought they could outpace the Gyarados, but they were wrong. Remembering residuals so incredibly important. That ends up costing them 90% of their Rhyperior. Moonblast from Florges fails to take the knockout as the Shadow Hundo Gyarados is barely able to hang on. Gyarados' Aqua Tail will put some nice damage onto the Florges. Switch timer's up, and in comes the Candle. Shadow Chandelure really cannot afford to get a farm down here. The Hexes are going to be doing nothing. In comes Rhyperior. Rhyperior is low enough that it will be forced to throw energy. Drill Run will be taking the knockout onto the Chandelure. And now in comes the Gyarados. Gyarados going to try and get the farm down. It's a simul KO. Metagross versus Florges. Can Metagross survive? Metagross wins charge attack priority, barely surviving the Fairy Wind on 1 HP. That is as close as it can possibly get, but the Shadow Hundo Metagross lives on. We move to the next match, Shadow Gyarados leading into Garchomp. Garchomp does have the ability to pick up the 2-hit KO here if the Garchomp or the Gyarados is Shadow, and interestingly enough, this is actually a Dragon Tail Garchomp. That means they will have fast move pressure in this matchup, whereas typically they do not. Twister would do a lot of damage. Gyarados can hold on here, however. Gyarados is going to be no shielding. Twister lands. Gyarados barely able to survive. In comes Metagross, and that's going to be answered with the Candle. Shadow Chandelure is getting absolutely melted by these Shadow Claws. Oh, that is so unfortunate. Energy Ball is going to be shielded. Can Chandelure make another move? It's able to make another Energy Ball. Now, does the opponent know their Chandelure counts? They do not. They end up double shielding, so they exit with a massive amount of energy, but in comes Gyarados to force them to go for the Meteor Mash. They're going to try and set up the 2-shield Shadow Metagross to be able to sweep. Gyarados' energy is lost. In the back is going to be a Shadow Rhyperior. Rhyperior not even going to make it to a charge attack. They're behind by a turn, and that's going to cost them everything. Meteor Mash takes the 1-hit KO. The pending damage heals back onto the Metagross. Opponent brings back in their Metagross into the Shadow, but they're just in so much trouble. There's not really a way out at this point because the Shadow Metagross can just go for the 2-shield and go for the full farm down. Opponent has the back-to-back Meteor Mashes, but they're going to have to pivot back into the Garchomp, and Garchomp just doesn't have the energy needed. In comes the Garchomp, there's the Shadow Meteor Mash, and that's going to close the door on any win condition. Man, I was a little bit worried seeing how much damage the Shadow Claws did to the Chandelure, but Chandelure making that second Energy Ball and pressuring that final shield really set up that Metagross for success. Hopping to the final match. Oh, it's actually a simultaneous switch here. Oh, that is diabolical. It was Gyarados into the Kiss, but the opponent simultaneously switched Rhyperior as Metagross hit the field. And I believe they actually switched the Rhyperior slightly faster as the Rhyperior was actually able to outpace the Metagross. That is really unfortunate as, yeah, Metagross just gonna get strictly outpaced by the Rhyperior, forced to fully sacrifice the Metagross. That was an amazing turn of events for the opponent. A little bit of weirdness there with the game. I know these battles are from a few days ago, so I believe the weirdness with the charge attacks lingering for too long should have been patched out by now. At least when I played today, I didn't end up seeing it on the new system, but man, it really looked weird for quite a few days. Back to the game at hand, this Togekiss energy is going to be quite difficult to remove from the field. Maybe a potential catch onto the Chandelure could be a way out. The Gyarados will get some nice chip damage, but Gyarados is never going to be able to get a farm down. Kiss able to hang on, in comes Chandelure, in the back is Skeledirge, and we have the battle of the Fire Ghost types. Skeledirge in a pretty rough spot here where it's always going to get outpaced by the Candle. Candle able to grab the final shield, racing for the Shadow Ball, but not quite able to get there. Chandelure, I believe, should now only be 1 hex away, so the Shadow Ball will be reached, and that Incinerate's worth of damage is going to be refunded after the Shadow Ball takes the KO. So Shadow Ball will pick up the knockout. Chandelure's health is back. Back in comes the Togekiss, and I assume a resisted Dazzling Gleam will take the knockout here. Chandelure is going to get KO'd by the Dazzling Gleam. In comes the Gyarados. Gyarados needs the Aqua Tail, just able to get there, not by much, but barely outpacing the Kiss. Aqua Tail KO's Togekiss, and that's a good game. You can see there, they ended up having a 4-1 set with the team. As I mentioned at the start of this video, this is absolutely not a team for climbing. This is just a trainer who hit Legend rank and decided, you know what, I'm just going to have some fun in the Master Premier Cup. But it is pretty cool to see trainers kind of breaking out their Shadow Hundos. And even if it's not a traditionally strong Hundo in the Master Premier Cup, like a Shadow Chandelure, still being able to have a little bit of success for it. That Energy Ball, Hex, and Shadow Ball moveset is one of the craziest movesets I've ever seen. Because anytime I see a Chandelure, I always just assume it's going to be the default. They're always going to have Incinerate, they're always going to have Flame Charge, and then either Shadow Ball, or if they're really trying to nuke things, they will end up firing off a Poltergeist. But in this case, it was basically none of the moves that I was expecting. Hex, Energy Ball, and Shadow Ball. Unfortunately, we did not get to see Energy Ball one-shot a Rhyperior or anything like that. I feel like that kind of would have been the payoff to the moveset, is if the opponent ends up sending in a Rhyperior, they end up no-shielding, and they just get completely one-hit KO'd. Unfortunately, that game against the Rhyperior didn't quite work out to where the Chandelure could take that knockout, but all in all, still a very cool moveset. I watched quite a lot of streamers playing the Master Premier Cup, and the funny thing was, I kept seeing this player playing this team against several other streamers. And I was like, this is the craziest moveset I've ever seen. How are they playing Hex, Energy Ball, Shadow Ball, Chandelure? I want to see more of this gameplay. And then I checked my battle submission forum today, and what do you know? There's a battle submission from CompWiz running this team. So many thanks to CompWiz for the battle submission. One quick note before I go, if you're watching this video on the day that it releases, then today is my birthday. And to celebrate my birthday, I'm going to be doing a duo stream with Dracobound later this evening, probably starting around 5:30 to 6 p.m. Central Time. I did bank a set, so I'll have 6 sets. He'll be playing a bunch of sets as well. We'll be hanging out and just celebrating another year around the sun and another year of Pokemon Go Battle League. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated, so thank you guys so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.